This one just says, hang the pedos, save the NHS.
Okay.
Okay.
Dueling to death or first blood should be legalized as an option to solve disputes between consenting individuals, but there shouldn't be a stigma for refusing to partake in duels. They should only be allowed to take place in designated areas with legal observers. My favourite bit, minors shouldn't be allowed to duel. So, by the way, this person has thought it through.
Really?
Stigma,
Yeah.
fuck that. If you don't want to do it, you don't need
Yeah.
to do it. Minors should definitely not be allowed to duel. It should be in designated areas between consenting adults.
Do you know what?
Fuck it.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to... Oh, I did that way too loud.
No,
Fuck
it's
me.
good. It
Was it all right?
Yeah, it's all right.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Welcome. Okay, let's start again. Welcome, everybody, to the Politics of Podcast. I'm Ali Milani.
And I'm Zoe Grunewald.
This week, it's a really exciting, fun show. So we wanted to react to your wildest political takes and political opinions, controversial political opinions. I was going to say within reason, but some of the ones I got through were not within reason. So we're going to read some out. We're going to react to them. We're going to talk about them. Some are silly, some are serious. So what we did, both Zoe and myself, we put out a message on our socials and we said, send us your wildest, most controversial political opinion. People were very forthcoming with them, more than I thought I would. How did it?
Yeah,
how was it for you?
Mine were quite reasoned, actually.
Okay, so you have more reasonable friends. Than
Yeah,
I do.
maybe my following's slightly less unhinged than yours. I don't
Yeah.
know. But we said this podcast, there's no judgment.
Yes,
you know?
no judgment. Well, some judgment, but no judgment.
Yeah, there'll be some judgment, but
Yeah.
the judgment will be, it
Well,
will
let's
be
see if your
reserved.
no judgment continues when I read some of mine.
Okay.
How do you want to do this? Should we do one each?
I think let's take it in turns, and then whoever has more can just keep
Okay.
going and shocking the other one.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want me to start more reasonable, or do you want me to start? You know what? I'll start reasonable, and
Yeah.
then we'll escalate
Okay.
as things go. This one is a stat. I don't think it's particularly controversial, so I'll read it out. If you don't vote or vote for a clearly non-viable candidate, you don't have a right to complain. Seriously, I think this person's American. Trump may win because some privileged, uneducated dipshit in a handful of swing states won't vote for Biden because they think Trump and Biden are the same. So this one is basically, if you don't vote and or if you vote for someone who would never win, like some crazy third-party candidate, you don't get to have an opinion.
Okay, my question to you is, do you think there's a difference between... There is a difference, actually, I think, between not voting and voting for an unviable candidate.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. Because
I think if you don't vote, you shouldn't complain.
yeah, so it's slightly, because I think this is an American person. I'm pretty sure because they said Trump. In America, it's very two-party. So if you vote for Jill Stein or something,
Yeah.
for example, as a Green Party candidate, it is a wasted vote. I mean, wasted vote. We can talk about that, but you're not going to decide who the next president of the United States is going to be. Whereas in the UK, we have still a two-party system, or that's kind of on the way out. But you can vote for a Liberal Democrat, a Green, any potential New Left Party, for example, or Reform definitely now, and have some success, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So let's deal with the not voting one first.
okay, so I agree.
Yeah.
If you don't vote, I don't think you can... No, actually, I'm going to change my mind.
Okay.
Because if there is a two-party system, for example, where, you know, your vote is pretty constrained, then not voting... Well, hang on. I'm getting myself all tied up in knots here.
So I don't see that.
I think you should always vote.
I don't agree.
I think
Yeah.
you should at least spoil your ballot paper.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
So
I
this
agree.
was my original
Yeah.
point. I think you should always go to that ballot box. I think
Yeah.
you should always, or send off your postal vote, and you should always do something,
Correct.
whether that is
Yeah.
voting for the unviable candidate or spoiling your ballot paper, because they still
Yeah.
get counted, right?
Yeah. Do you want to
Not-
know something fun about that? So when I stood against Boris, which I promise not to bring up too much on the podcast, but it's my claim
It's
to fame.
always worth a reminder.
So when the votes got counted in the end, what they do is they took my campaign manager, in essence, and they took him and his, and they took us to a different room before they announced who had won. We knew at that point, but before they had announced. And they showed us all the spoilt ballots because there's a system in which you can contest them. So if you think a ballot isn't... Because there was one, for example, that put an X next to my name and then had scribbled something at the bottom, and they tried to spoil it. So you can contest them and have
Interesting.
that, which is actually a very open process because they can't just chuck votes away. But on one of the ballot papers, they had written next to Boris's name "cunt," C-U-N-T,
Yeah.
and he must have been between 5 to 8 minutes arguing with the returning officer because he wanted to take it home and frame it. And his campaign manager had to calm him down and tell him to stop behaving like that and be like, that's enough. Because he was so, in that like genuine, typical Boris way, he found it so funny, he wanted to take it home and frame it.
I'm surprised you find it that funny. I would have thought there'd be a few ballot papers which
Oh,
would
there was
have
plenty,
said,
yeah. There were some rude ones about me.
oh, really?
Yeah,
What was
yeah,
the
yeah.
worst? What were the worst ones?
There were some racist ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they're not great.
They're not great.
No.
Was there some? No, there was just some bad ones. There weren't really any funny ones.
Cunt?
Some around there.
Around
yeah,
that
yeah.
sort of
We got a
sort
few
of temperature.
we got a few of you're both like cunts or you're both pricks or whatever, like dickheads, whatever, right? But,
Yeah. I bet that particularly.
that stung way more than
that was
than the racist.
Well, come
ones.
on.
Yeah.
I'm a totally different cunt. From
But so
Boris Johnson.
here's the thing. Like I think, I agree. I think you should spoil your ballot. I think not. There is a thing I think of as generations, because when you've had to fight for the vote. So my family were refugees from Iran. The vote doesn't count anywhere, right? You don't get to decide who the government is. So I have a conscious appreciation for getting to decide my government. But I feel like as generations get further away from having to fight for the right to vote, women, for example, fighting for the right to vote, maybe the appreciation for how important the process itself disappears a little bit.
I agree.
But equally, I think it's the political parties and the politicians' job to earn your vote. So if you haven't enthused someone to vote, they're not obligated to vote for one of the main parties.
That's where I stand. I
Yeah.
think you should always try and engage with the democratic process because it's so precious, and I think it's so important that everybody gets in the habit of voting. But I agree, the system is terrible. It's unrepresentative. Even here with first past the post, so many votes.
It's
don't
so
count.
bad.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, like, for non Brits watching this, our government got nearly 2/3 of the House of Commons and 2/3 of the power, the voting power, massive majority on 34% of the vote.
Yeah.
And by the way, that was my side that won the last election.
Yeah.
So I'm not,
No.
I'm not like complaining because we lost. It's just outrageous how the system works.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess it's good for people to know that certainly in Britain that we see what you write because we get to contest them.
Yeah.
We had loads, by the way. There was like 300 and something sport ballots.
Okay.
I guess that's not that many when
So it's interesting that you actually get to read them because maybe if you spoil your ballot, the candidate that you are writing a message to will see that and take it to heart.
Although I will say, for the love of God, read the instructions. The amount of people we had a fair few people who voted for me, whose clear intention was to vote for me and for Boris, where they circled the name rather than putting an X in the box.
Or
put a tick
Can't put a
outside the
tick,
box.
Yeah.
It was so annoying.
Okay.
All right, yours?
Okay. This one just says, hang the pedos, save the NHS.
Okay.
Okay. Which I think a lot of people think is the general position. If you map the British electorate out on a map, most Brits would be
hang the
pedos, so they'd be socially conservative and save the NHS status.
I mean, the NHS is this the more easy part of the very...
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. Hang the pedos.
Actually, the thing is, I don't believe in capital punishment.
No.
But I don't want to come in defence of the pedos. I don't think that's a good look either.
I think you were very nuanced there. Like, you don't like pedos, but you also don't believe in capital punishment, full stop, as a general rule.
Yeah, so here's my position on capital punishment. And it... by the way, this is as someone who's a practicing Muslim in which Islam does have capital punishment. But I am very... Unlike... I can separate personal religious belief from what I think the civics should be in this country. My view is that a state should always be more moral than the individual. And if the state kills, I won't say murder, but if the state kills, then the state loses the moral authority to tell you not to kill. So I've always heard this people saying, if someone was to murder your family, what would you do? And I go, well, I don't know, but maybe in that room, I would also kill them in the moment. but the state has to be more
But you're
moral
not-
than me.
Yeah, you're not the state.
Yeah.
So I
The state
actually.
can't make a decision the way an individual would, and it needs to maintain moral authority.
So there is a position. So we should say that usually when you do a straw poll of the general public in
It's
the UK,
over 50, yeah.
most people do want to see
Yeah.
a return of the death penalty. I was actually talking about this on a certain favourite right-wing news channel last night. Well, I wasn't talking about it, but the host was
Which one?
talking about it, GB News.
Oh,
with,
they just invited me on today to do it. Anyway,
Oh, there you go. Well, about capital punishment. And the host of the show, Michelle Dewberry, said, I really believe that we should bring back capital punishment. And she was talking about in the case of, for example, the Southport killer, Axel Rudakabana. She said, I would give him the death penalty
Yeah.
because there is no question he didn't do it. So the other guy who was on the show, Alex Dean, who is a Conservative commentator and I believe a lawyer, was saying to her, you can't have the death penalty because there's always a chance that someone could be innocent and then they have the death penalty and that their life is wrongly taken. And she said, but in the case of someone like Axel Rudakabana, the evidence is so clear he did it. Everyone saw this body cam footage. You know, there's no doubt. But then Alex made the point, but a court convicts you beyond reasonable doubt. There's no beyond reasonable doubt, beyond reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
There's no beyond reasonable doubt times 10, double ticked off, you're definitely
There's
guilty.
no absolute certainty.
No,
Yeah.
there can't be. You know, there can only ever be beyond reasonable doubt. Otherwise, you completely destroy the basis of our criminal justice system.
You also can't, like, on this one you can say it, but once you write it into law, you can't guarantee so my argument against capital punishment actually isn't that innocent people would be killed. That's part of the variable, but the main one is the moral one. But like, you can't guarantee. Well, there's two things. One, I don't think there's any evidence that it works as a deterrent anyway, because there's like America has capital punishment and the murder rate I think is higher than in the UK. Certainly the gun crime murder rate is much higher. But yeah, you can't. There's no guarantee. You can't. You know, on this one it will be, but you're not going to be.
Well, then you'd have thresholds of severity, right? So, for example, like a woman. So, say women are murdered by their husbands, by their partners, way too regularly in this country. It's often done behind closed doors, and they can be subjected to a whole lifetime of abuse and torture before they're brutally murdered. In this case, they probably wouldn't get the death penalty because it was only two people in the room and one of them's dead, right? So even if there was a bloody knife and all that kind of stuff, because it wasn't seen by loads of people and was beyond reasonable doubt. But whereas if someone went and
even if we were able to foolproof the people being killed by the state did do the crime, what does it accomplish?
Exactly. It's not like it would be more.
Because we're not saying don't punish them. We're saying put them in prison for the rest of their life.
And it's like, if you're saying I want to bring back capital punishment because the most evil people deserve it. Well, my point is you wouldn't necessarily have the most evil people getting it. You'd only have the ones who did it the most publicly. And also, what about AI, right? You could say, you could have footage doctored of someone going out and murdering everyone.
Crazy,
yeah. So
I saw an AI video yesterday.
Was it the bunnies?
No.
Oh.
It was Trump and Starmer. Have you seen it?
Oh, no.
So Starmer's giving his speech at the podium. Trump walks in, punches him, and then does the double thumbs up to the... I have a broken finger. Does a double thumbs up and then walks away. And I took for like half a second, I was like, yo, have I just missed
We should do a
something?
video of us reacting to AI.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out what's real and what isn't.
Yeah.
That would be good.
But anyway, so...
I'm not clear on your position. Are you in favour or against?
Oh, no, I'm against the death penalty.
In all...
I think fundamentally... Well, part of me is just like, and who wants that job? You know, like who wants to be the executioner? It's like a pretty horrific thing to do. Secondly...
And then can you imagine getting it wrong?
Yeah. Secondly, I can't... I as far as I'm aware, there's no humane way really to kill someone. Yeah. Thirdly, I agree with you. I don't think the state should do that. I think it loses its moral authority. And then there's always the fact that somebody could be innocent. Yeah. So no, I don't. And also, people just waste their lives on death row. It's not particularly cheaper. If you're looking from a cost efficiency perspective,
you can't make laws about killing people on cost efficiency.
No, but I'm trying to predict.
No, that's
all
what
the
they would
reasons
say.
for.
Yeah. So a lot of people would say it would help with prison space.
I do understand. It's really irritating to think of the most evil person you can think of. Say Axel Rudakabana, right? just sitting in prison and being fed and watered and, you know, and never being able to reintegrate back into society.
But my response to that would be, we're better than him as a society. So we're not going to take it.
And it's not much of a life, you know. It's still a punishment.
Yeah.
So, no.
No.
But save the NHS.
Save the NHS, I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm happy with that one.
Right, should I do one? Oh, there we go. How wild do you want it to be?
Oh, I want it to be medium wild.
Oh, I was going to give you the wildest one. Forget rightist fascism or leftist authoritarianism. Centrist tyranny flies under the radar.
Wait, hang on. You're gonna have to.
So basically, what this person is saying: forget right-wing fascists and left-wing authoritarians and fascists. Yeah. It's centrist tyranny that flies under the radar. So I think what this person is saying, and I'm because I know who sent it, right? I've anonymized it for you. I think what they're saying is that there is a particular immorality to this centrist management decline and maintenance of social inequality, social poverty, of the oppression of people globally and internationally that doesn't get recognized because centrists don't take perceived extremist positions. That's my kind way of interpreting what that is.
Yes, I think the thing about centrism is it's always sold like the sensible
adults in the room.
Yeah. But actually, it's like the enablers, right? Because they.
And I guess what this person's saying is also it flies under the radar. Yeah. Not that it's not evil and people don't recognize that it's evil.
Because it enables the rise of fascism, right? By, as you say, giving into the billionaires who want to just hoard wealth, by not dispelling vicious anti-migrant, anti-trans, anti-whatever myths, by not addressing the real structural issues that are at the root of a lot of our problems, like whether that be housing, the economy, whatever, and just saying that and then pretending to be righteous because they're tweaking things when really they know.
Are we not in that moment right now? Like, for example, if the Starmer government, which by its own definition is a centrist, not tyranny, but a centrist government, if this government doesn't address the real social ills in our society and lays the yellow brick road to Nigel Farage and potentially a far right government, the far right bit is bad and evil in and of itself, but is the laying the road for that?
Because they know what's coming. They know what's coming, and these people have the keys to the kingdom, right? So ministers, the Prime Minister, have all these teams behind them. They know exactly what the issues are in society. They know that there is still the same amount of wealth in this country, in fact more than there was pre-COVID, but inequality has worsened because people have got richer. They know that they are never going to... So, for example, take the welfare stuff, right? They have allowed this narrative to take hold that more young people, or more people, but especially pointed at young people, are claiming welfare because they're lazy and can't be bothered to work. They just don't have the grit to work. Knowing full well that wages have stagnated and that work, even when they're in work, it doesn't pay them enough. So, for example, I was talking to another journalist, Vicky Spratt, who writes brilliantly about this today, and she was explaining that she was once talking to a woman who worked. She worked in HR. She had a good job. And then she got sick and lost her house and was made homeless, and she had a daughter. And it actually made more financial sense for her to then quit her job to then get another house than it was to stay and work, because she wasn't able to claim the benefits that would have afforded her the rent. So if you have a system where that work just doesn't pay for someone to have a normal quality of life, doesn't pay for someone to even rent a property, then the whole system is broken. What Labour need to do, and everybody knows this, they need to build a lot of affordable housing very, very quickly. Yeah. But they're not going to do that. Yeah. Because, and they know all this, but it's just shut our eyes and let's hope that no one realises.
Like, I think that's the most infuriating part about centrism, is this sort of,
it's pretending the system works when it clearly doesn't work.
And also your only interest being in managing the system rather than changing it. Why do you want to come into government just to be the bank manager that just keeps the status quo clocking? I don't understand that. Anyway, do you want to do your next one?
Yes. God, that
'Cause I
one.
have- I
That
have-
one got me all hot
I
under the
have
collar.
I have a few of these. That
Okay. I'm gonna do a slightly, I guess, easier one. Okay. My big Tory opinion is that we should make tourists pay for museums.
Do we not in the UK?
No, I guess not. I mean, I don't think there's a I think they're saying there should
Ah,
be
I
a
think
separate payment for.
No, I think they're right. I don't think people do pay. 'Cause
No.
the British Museum, I think you walk in for free. Science Museum, I'm pretty sure.
And they say with the money, reinvest it back into arts and culture.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that.
I was thinking about this, right?
Is that a Tory opinion? So in Japan, by the way, very interesting. Me and my wife went to Japan on arguably our honeymoon, and I'll say arguably because she doesn't agree that it's our honeymoon, even though it was definitely right after
You
we got
better
married.
not be trying to pass off a holiday before you were married as a honeymoon.
We were definitely married before
You were married before.
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. I have the paperwork to prove
Okay.
it.
All right. All right.
But she insists that it wasn't our honeymoon because we hadn't had the wedding. Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, she's wrong. So she's on her way.
I'm going to be Team Elizabeth on
she's
this.
on her way to the studio. By the way.
Okay. Good. All right.
So I'm getting it out before she gets it. So in Japan, they very much have a different set. Forget museums, theme parks, all this kind of stuff. The locals pay one price and or don't pay, and tourists pay a different price and or pay more.
Yeah. Okay. I am of the view, without sounding like we need to look after our own first, which is a very loaded phrase. I think if you are a tourist coming to the UK, coming to London, for example, you probably have a fair amount of money.
To London, for
Yes.
sure, yeah.
Whereas there are people who have to live and work in London who can't live in London, and therefore that's why we barely have any hospitality staff anymore, because you actually cannot afford to live in London and work in hospitality in London. So I think you should get a cheaper deal.
Yeah,
is that
yeah.
a bit like?
I don't
is
think
it a bit right? Is that a bit right wing?
Are we right wing? I don't think so.
I was thinking this, right?
Although there is a view that things like museums and knowledge should never have prices attached to them. But that's
yes, but education, as my grandfather always said, education is expensive.
It is.
And I don't think he said that in a kind of like it should be expensive. I think it was just one of those like, unfortunately, education is expensive.
So are we in agreement that people should have to pay for museums?
Yes. And do you know what I was also thinking, right? I was thinking when I'm a tourist in another country, say, for example, I went to Barcelona over the summer. Obviously, they're having a lot of protests about tourism. I spent the whole time walking around thinking, why would anyone hate me? Look at me. I'm just a little tourist. I'm just trying to appreciate your lovely country. I'm just trying to eat your food. I'm just trying to have a nice time.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry about Airbnb. I'm trying to do this ethically. When I'm in London and there's like a gaggle of people.
Let's say who it is. Should I say who it is?
Yeah, go on.
It's the Americans, isn't it?
The Americans, yeah.
Fuck me, the American tourists.
When they're strolling.
By the way, I
around-
love America. Everyone knows I love America, but the American tourists are the worst.
The worst is when they're strolling around Westminster like a tour group. And Westminster, considering it is literally where our House of Parliament are.
Also for me and you, because we work there.
And you're always rushing around.
And I'm trying to get from one committee room
and the
to the other.
pavements are very narrow.
Oh my lord!
It's
that bit right outside Westminster Station where they're taking. Sorry, I'm interrupting, but they're taking the picture of Big Ben. Fuck me.
So
move.
my perspective then is, get the fuck out of the way, you fucking tourists. Okay, so I don't know. I don't know what to
you're
say.
Swinging right. All right, I'm gonna leave the wildest one till the end.
Okay.
Okay, here's an interesting one. Actually, very similar to you were talking about making work pay and people not being able to live a full sort of prosperous life with a single wage, right? I don't think I agree with this, but I'll read out. Most social problems we see in today's youth, including dropping literacy rates and rising issues in schools, are a result of having both parents have to work to support kids. For a household to function and students to be successful, one person really needs to be able to stay home until the kids are at least junior or primary or high school aged, between 12 to 14. Both parents working leads to a lot more parental burnout, which is severely affecting the next generation's ability to self-regulate, know basic facts, have literacy and interest in learning, because those traits that used to be taught at home aren't happening. Now, what I think this person's saying, I'm going to be generous again, and when you hear this, instantly you think women should be at home and the guy should go work. I don't think that's what they're saying.
I don't think that's what they're saying.
I think they're saying, and also I don't think they're saying it should be man, woman necessarily, but I think they're saying regardless, there should be a parent at home with the child, and that would enormously contribute to some of the problems we're having amongst the youth. And they're specifically linking it to both parents having to work to to survive.
So,
Basically.
so I think there's interesting points in there, and I think like we have to, as you say, treat this question with open minds and nuance, because I think there are some really important points in there. It used to be that we had an economy that you could survive on a single parent income.
Yeah.
Now
that's by the way, that's The Simpsons. Have you seen? There's massive TikTok conversations about The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And how it's so unrealistic now, because Homer would go to work and he was pretty terrible at his job, but he'd be able to have what was a fully detached three-person house, 2 cars.
I mean, in America, the houses are you do get more, or you did get a lot more for your money. But no, it's absolutely true. But we used to have, and that was also because we had a more generous welfare state as well. So people had social housing. It was usually the man who would go out and work, and the mum would bring up the kids. Now the problem with that is it meant that women they had no financial independence. They could be locked into dangerous relationships. They had no money of their own. It was ripe for exploitation. It also meant that women weren't able to really properly work, and obviously terrible for gender equality. No one disagrees that women being able to go out and work is a good thing. Some days I would like not to work, but I thank the people who fought for my right to do so. The problem is that we now have more people, because of declining wages, the rising cost of houses, all these things. You do need both parents to be working.
There isn't a choice there.
There isn't a choice.
You don't have a choice for one parent to stay at home.
And I think we talk a lot about...
Do you think that's having an impact on youth, for example?
So
this person talks about what literacy rates.
Yeah, so this is what I'm going to say. I think we talk a lot about the financial implications of this. So, for example, the cost of childcare, the ability for parents to juggle parenting and going to work and having to reduce their hours and the but we don't talk about what is the social and familial cost of this.
And that's the second part of this, where they talk about parental burnout severely affects.
Yeah, so and you see this, like, women talk a lot about they were promised they could have it all, but having it all is absolutely exhausting and actually not impossible. It is, but at what cost? If you're going to work, and then women are still expected. There's that old trope of if your kid gets sick at school, the school always ring the mum, even if the mum works longer hours than the dad and makes twice the money. There's all, and of course the way that maternity is structured, it means that women have to. It often means that women have to take the time off and all that kind of stuff. So. Yeah, the pressure on women is huge, but then on men as well. They have the pressure to then be the breadwinner, to make the money, to go out to work, to stay in a job they might not be happy with because they can't take a pay cut because they've got a family to feed. So you can imagine the way it impacts your identity and your ambition. And then there's the impact on kids, because I had a childminder when I grew up. And I would say, like, not seeing my parents was like, it was quite hard. It was quite sad,
because they were both at work.
They both worked, and they were split up, and they both worked. So that was even harder, obviously, because then you have 2 single parents who both have to go to work, and they're trading in between it. I've turned out okay.
Mm-hmm. Would you think it had an impact? Because I grew up in a single parent household.
Yeah.
Because obviously my dad wasn't around. My dad was in Iran, and we had to leave. So definitely had an impact on me.
I look at, I don't know what you think about having kids. I really want to have children, but it looks like impossibly hard work. And as someone who self-IDs as quite lazy, honestly, the thing that puts me off is I just worry I guess it's more like a worry that I'll lose like a big part of myself, because I won't have time to think about myself anymore. It will literally just be baby, work, household, husband. Yeah. And I think that's what the question, like,
I think, okay, I'm going to admit something controversial. Me and my friends, mostly guys, we've had, because a few of them have had kids, and we've had this conversation, and I think one of the things we're most anxious of about having kids is, say your partner doesn't want to go back to work, right? So if we have kids and my wife says, you know what, I think I want to stay 2 years, 3 years with the child, you can't say no, right? But then there's the massive financial anxiety of how do you earn enough money in London, of all places, to be able to support. And I think, so for example, with us, I think if we had the choice, if we had the financial choice, I would probably be the one that stayed at home in the dynamics of our relationship, and I would be perfectly happy with that. But that choice just doesn't exist, because even on 2 salaries, and by the way, we both get paid pretty well, as I'm sure you guys do, it's still unreasonable to think about raising a child on 2 salaries, let alone 1. So I can imagine that even if we have a child, and I think we'll definitely be having kids, and I'm sure hopefully you will as well, you'll both have to go to work, and that will mean large parts of the day that you don't have touch points with you, unless you work from home.
I mean, and it's also like the cost of, so there was that thing, and I think it's slightly been alleviated by the funded childcare that has now been introduced. But there was a thing where, and maybe the viewers can correct us if we're wrong, but people, it made more financial sense for women to quit their jobs.
Yeah.
And to look after baby, because childcare was so expensive. Childcare cost more than their single salary. So, because like in London, it can be like...
We did the numbers. You know how much it is?
No.
£20,000 a year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
£20,000 a year. That's crazy.
So...
There was a study that came out that showed from 0 to 18, raising a child in London is £1 million.
Wow.
Yeah, from 0 to 18 in London.
Fuck's sake.
Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Have you got one?
Yes. Have I got one?
You look like you were in thought about that.
Yes. Okay. Our entire media ecosystem is run on polling. It doesn't... oh, sorry. No, I've said that wrong. Our entire media ecosystem is run on polling it doesn't understand, and it doesn't care that it doesn't mention turnout or first past the post, or any other context that could be useful for a story, like how many millionaires there are in the UK when discussing their apparent exodus due to taxing their wealth extracted from our economy. We have people who don't understand the basics of data in far too much power, and it's nearly as dangerous as the lack of working class writers in a sea of journalists from generational wealth who have little to no understanding of how people live, and almost no empathy for the average person who is impacted by policy. It's bleak hearing Westminster reporters treating politics like a soap opera and not the reason why some people can't afford the basics in life.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, I think let's take...
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
One part about that first. Do you think... Sorry, were you going to say... I have one part that I really want to ask you about.
I wanted to talk to you about the data points. I think it's really interesting.
Okay, can we do this first, and then we'll go to data? Because data, as you know, is my nerdy thing that I'm quite strong. You hang around with a lot of journalists. Do you think there's a problem of lack of journalists from working class backgrounds?
100%. And this, I'm middle class, so I totally... I can't disagree.
Because you can only report it's just the basic reality of life that you can only report things from the prism of your background. So, for example, I will always analyze politics, the world, from the fact that I am an immigrant, that I grew up in a council estate from a single parent working class family, that I went to a comprehensive school, that I use the NHS very regularly.
You do?
Well, yeah.
You do. I've noticed that. I've been keeping tabs.
This finger doesn't quite go down at the moment.
To be fair, you do throw yourself around a lot, don't you?
That's true.
I don't do that.
But therefore, I just view everything from my prism. And I think it would be foolish for journalists to not acknowledge.
I think the problem is that political reporting has been given this cult status in journalism. And I don't know what the chicken or what the egg is there. I don't know if that's because it attracted a certain class of people who were used to private members clubs, who were used to private schools, who were used to Oxford. Because if you ever go into Westminster, all those environments are recreated.
Have you seen that picture of the press conference during COVID where they took a picture of the journalists?
Yeah, and
they all look the same.
Yeah, and they're all white men.
Yeah, it's usually white men between the ages of 20 to 40, sometimes older, with those round glasses, blue suits.
So, and it was that trope. You go from, does Eton have a prep school? It probably does. You go from Eton Prep to Eton to Oxford or Cambridge to Westminster to the Gentlemen's Club in the evening. And all those dynamics are recreated through that. And the point is there you have journalists mixing with MPs, mixing with people of power. So mixing with the people who own the papers. So you get this dominance of these particular worldviews. So on the one hand, you could say, of course, that was always going to mean that political coverage was given the highest status because those people are in charge of everything and they think it's the most important thing. But then there's also the fact that now people, viewers and readers crave political psychodrama. It's been fed to them and now they want it. So
it's a mix of politics
and entertainment. The media's obsession with Nigel Farage.
Yeah.
Reform's policy platform is absolutely abysmally contradictory. for the last few days, right, while we've been recording this, the papers have been running Nigel Farage tearing apart the online safety bill, even though he openly admits he doesn't have any proposals for how to do it differently. That should be the story. Snake oil salesman still selling snake oil. But no, it's Nigel Farage and, is he getting under Keir Starmer's skin? And, is this member of the cabinet doing that? Who the fuck cares? What really matters to people across the country is how much money is in their pocket. Is their welfare going to be taken away? Why can't they buy housing? Why is their 40-year-old child had to move back home because they can't get a job or a house? But
isn't this how Trumpism started as well? Because Trump, when he first entered the race, he was on single-digit polling, but Fox News was so enamored by the fact that he was a little bit entertaining, outrageous.
Floods the zone with shit. That's his whole thing, isn't it?
And they just covered him to the nth degree and gave him all the popularity and the noise.
100%.
And Farage gets the same thing.
And it's so much easier for a front page to be run on Farage having a go at the science minister over some hurty words than it is to say, 100,000 people are going to die because this welfare benefit was taken away. It just seems to be I worked in a newspaper which was moving online. They want stories about Nigel Farage because people click on them. They want stories about the psychodrama because people click on them. People don't click on the do you get proper journalism about what this policy is going to do to somebody.
Tell us about that. So I'm not a journalist. Most people watching aren't journalists. When you decide what to cover, maybe not so much where you are now because you have a little bit more freedom now, but in other places that you've worked, and we don't need to name them, but have you had editors going, you can't cover that because it won't get enough clicks, or please cover this because it gets enough clicks? That's how
the news desk works.
So it's nothing about informing, really. It's about what people already want.
It's not just to blame the papers, because unfortunately people don't feel like they should pay for journalism anymore. And I understand. I wish journalism could be free, but there's many reasons why it can't be, because then it's state funded? Well, that could be problematic. You need independent journalism. You have to pay for independent journalism. People don't want to pay for it. So they have to make their money through advertisers. Well, advertisers want to know how many people clicked on this page. How do you get clicks? You continue running the same stories on the things people click on. People click on Nigel Farage.
Well, how do you fix that? You have to convince
people have to pay for journalism.
But then they go to where places that they already agree.
Yes.
That's the other problem. Right-wing people who watch GB News, Talk TV, a bit of LBC, maybe some Sky News.
Have you seen their adverts? Nobody wants to advertise on GB News.
It's because no one's watched.
If you ever watch the advert breaks,
that's not true. GB News actually does get.
I actually don't think it's because it's because they're worried about the brand.
Reputational.
Yes, reputational risk.
Because there's some nuts
So if you ever watch GB News during the advert break, it's wild. It's like random Scottish whiskey company, retirement home, funeral home, cruise ship.
It's all like you've got to be 70.
What's it called? Where
the weight loss bit.
No,
belts?
where you have a gastric band, loads of gastric band adverts.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you enjoy being a journalist?
Do I enjoy being a journalist? Yeah.
For the most part.
I probably enjoy being
If you could go back in time, would you choose a different profession? Because I 100% would.
Yeah, I really, I'm gonna really, if I know I said I was middle class earlier, I'm gonna really double down on that. I really want to own a little independent cafe.
Oh, nice.
In a little seaside town, Whitby.
Is that your retirement plan, maybe?
Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah. Let's talk about the polling section.
Sorry. Yes. Okay. So
because I definitely agree with that. Let me talk to you about the polling. So as a lot of people will know, I'm a bit of a polling nerd. In fact, who was it? LBC. I did an LBC show recently where they referred to me as a Labour pollster, which isn't true. I'm not a pollster, but I do work with pollsters all the time.
To be fair, that's
not bad. I did do political data science.
And the rule is once someone's called you it, you can add it to your website.
Oh, can I? Yeah. Nice. That's what I'm going to do now. Add it to the consultancy. But it's definitely true. So how polling should work is polling gives you a snapshot of where people are at that moment. The problem is, first of all, in politics, polling is not supposed to drive what you do. It's supposed to tell you where you are. The problem with politics, and certainly this iteration of the Labour Party and of talentless politicians, they go to focus groups and go, what do you already believe? Because I need your support and let me regurgitate that back to you. That's the worst kind of politics. Political courage is saying, this is the right answers to the problem society has. Let me take a poll to see where people are and how much I can move them in a period of time. So let's say people think, for example, we've been talking about today, that capital punishment is the right thing to do. If I believe it's the wrong thing to do, then I take a poll on where people are now. I run my political communications and my messaging for 6 months, and then I take another poll to see how much people have moved. That's how good polling is done and good use of polling is done. The problem is our politicians don't have any political courage or talent to be able to move people, so they just go to people and go, what do you already believe? That's the political side. In journalism, I think the polling far too often dictates what the story is and what the news is. Polling is all over the place, right? It's not an exact science. B, the poll cannot be the story. You know, the poll just gives you a snapshot of where people are. And it's definitely true. There's a phenomenon in polling called the winning team, which is people like to be on the winning team.
Yes.
They don't like the feeling of being on the losing team. So as someone's popularity grows, people jump on that bandwagon generally because they want to be part of social movements. So as Nigel Farage's sort of brand grows and the more publicity you give him, and if you look at the polls and go, well, he's on 30%, therefore I should give him more publicity, and the poll drives your content, that's how demagogues come about and populists come about. So I have a real problem with how polling is used in politics, how polling is reported on in general. I often think there's no context. People don't understand what's behind these polls.
So I want to ask you, because I think you're making really interesting points. The thing that always occurs to me is Partygate.
Yes.
Right? Johnson wanted to stay firmly when he started slipping down the approval polls, when Partygate was coming out, and it kept coming and coming, and the Tories were tanking, and he was tanking, and suddenly he was worse than the Tories. And, you know, usually that's like the death. Well, yeah, I mean, probably
when you're significantly worse than your party, the party ditches you because you're a liability. Yeah.
Should he have hung on? And I'm not saying this from a perspective of, obviously, we didn't want him to hang on, but would you have advised him to hang on?
Okay, I'm taking all of my beliefs and partisanship now. I'm just a pure, cold-hearted political operator. I 100% would have told him to hang on. In fact, I would... how can I say this?
Because he could.
Why would you voluntarily give up power?
Yeah.
Right? It's because, first of all, he moved too quickly, right? This was all over from January to the summer, right? And he had a long time before the next general election. Now, the question is, how much was his cabinet and his party moving against him? Because if you can't... So, for example, Liz Truss couldn't have hung on because she literally couldn't replace people fast enough who were resigning.
And
right?
and maybe that was Boris Johnson's problem, actually, as well.
I don't think it was much, but definitely it was a problem. So, if you initially remember, he kind of hung on, and then people started resigning, and he couldn't form a cabinet fast enough. So, I think it was that element. But for sure, what I would say is, first of all, politics moves really quickly.
Yeah.
The attention span of the country moves really quickly. But it is also the case that once people make up their mind about you, it's very hard to change it. Now, Boris was a charismatic enough character where I think he could have...
I think he could. I think, you know, he really is Teflon, and I think he could have... He could have held on and
I suspect if you were to ask him, he regrets it.
Yeah.
Moving on. In fact, do you remember his leaving speech? I'll never forget the line.
Did he say, when the herd moves, it moves?
Yeah, and he said, and what was it? And them's the...
And them's the breaks.
And them's the breaks, which was a signal that he didn't want to go.
Yeah.
That he was forced to go.
I mean...
But there is also, I've heard it... So there's been a lot of conversations about Keir Starmer and how much he has left. And I've heard MPs say, eventually, the men in grey suits knock on the door and tell you you're done, which the conspiracy theorists in the comments are going to love.
Well, this is Nadine Dorries' whole thing, right? You know, the whole book she wrote, which I've read,
yes. Yeah,
but I've done enough things with her. I'm going to say this. This is my controversial opinion. I quite like Nadine Dorries.
Why?
What? I don't agree with her on things. I know I've met her a few times on a personal level. I used to work for her when I was at DCMS. Yeah. She was, as Tory ministers go, I think she wasn't one of the worst. Yeah. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. And on a personal level...
So would you say she's your favourite Tory?
Ooh, favourite Tory.
Who's my favourite Tory?
Do you know what she might be? Because she's also got that slightly unhinged factor, which I think makes it
quite
interesting.
Also, I'm gonna sound so amateurish. But I do appreciate someone who just says what they think.
And she's had an extraordinary backstory. She isn't one of the posh...
Oh, yes, that's true. She
isn't one of the posh boys. She's had quite a lot of tragedy in her life. She used to be an intensive care nurse.
Oh,
she lost quite a few people close to her. I think she might have lost her daughter or her husband. She actually really did earn her place there.
Yeah, her politics
and
is
I know she went, yes, her politics is shit. And I know she went a little bit kind of... she became a figure of fun at the end. But I do think there was some misogyny in that as well. So my
no doubt,
view is,
did she get proposed for a lordship and then get taken out as well? I think because I remember her saying
maybe something, or that she just didn't get one, but why not when I can't remember. But anyway, we've really gone off track, Nadine Dorries. But yeah, maybe
Nadine
she is
Dorries,
my favourite Tory.
Yeah, sorry, I distracted you. You were saying something she said about something, but
anyway,
I've lost it. Let's go to the next one.
Okay.
Is it you or me?
It's you.
This is me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I am going to give you. Oh, you're gonna love this because you're big on housing. Real estate investing should be illegal. No need to purchase a home unless it is going to be your primary residence.
Okay.
So, you tell me what you think and I'll tell you what I think.
I used to be like, all landlords are evil.
Yeah.
Now I think like 95% of landlords are. Basically, I do think there is you can make a good moral argument for the existence of landlords.
Yeah. Can you?
For
the existence.
No, hang on. Do I mean for the existence of rental properties?
Right. Okay.
Unfortunately, there are lots of bad landlords, and I think people who have like property portfolios with loads of houses, and they see it as an investment. Because when you see it as an investment, you're basically betting on there being a shortage of supply, because you want your money. You want it to grow money. So.
So what's the positive case? When does it work well?
So renting can work really well. It can improve social mobility. It can allow people to be kind of more nimble, to move around the country, to take on different jobs. It can mean that people don't have to like sink loads of their own money into a property. The important thing is that you have strong renters' rights, and there are countries that do rental properties really well. I mean, social housing originally was you were renting from the state essentially, and we brought in right to buy, and obviously that changed things. I don't think people necessarily need to own their own properties, is what I'm saying. You can have like a really workable rental market. What I do agree with is I don't think people should be buying property as an investment. That was basically
I worked on this a little bit with John McDonnell when he was Shadow Chancellor, and he had a really good thing of being able to differentiate between individual landlords and the concept of landlordism, which is what I think he was coining at the time, which is we should really be looking at regulating heavily and or looking at people who own property portfolios. And I think at the time we were thinking more than 5 or 6. I would go even lower than that, but hey,
I would,
but like people who own like property portfolios, yes, that's probably either not ideal, or we should have such strict renters' rights and regulation that makes sure that you can't bet against the market, you can't short supply it. But also, you can't exploit people.
I think this is the thing. I think maybe.
Because by the way, it's probably, if we were to distill it, it's probably the number one issue in the country.
I think I am against individual people owning lots of property, because I think, I think people have made money betting on there being a shortage of housing.
I tell you the other bit that bothers me. I was just the other day after football. I was driving. We were going to a coffee shop after football. And we were driving past, and anyone who lives in London, if you drive past Edgware Road, from Kilburn into Edgware Road, that first section of Edgware Road, there's some really luxury flats that have been built. And I grew up in that area. And we looked up at it, and I thought, wow, who lives here? Because it's not in the rich part of Edgware Road down Marble Arch. It's in my ends, which was close to Kilburn. And we looked, and there was maybe 4 lights on. And we all thought, I bet you this place is empty. It's full of people who've like bought it and left it empty while... I would go even less. I think maybe 2 or 3.
Put your money back into the economy and give me some of it, please. No, I think that's bad. What I do think there is a place for is ethical rentals. And thinking about it, I think they should probably be state-owned. I am a statist. I mean, I think, people are suspicious of government, but...
Not in this country.
So the mass social housing.
But can I just say that on that? People think we're small. Like, that's America.
No, I know.
People in this country, if you look at the whole, are big state.
Hang the pedos, save the NHS.
Yeah, there we go. Which is going to be the title of this. Have you got any more? I've got the big one I've been waiting for. Well, I don't think we can talk too much about it, but I've got a couple of.
Let's do these quicker, okay? Yeah. There should have been a levy on the FTSE 100 energy companies and banks to repay furlough, the mental health fallout, to find missing school pupils, e.g., a total reset of the wealth imbalance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
There was a lot there.
Agreed.
Levy on the big 6.
Basically, all the fucking places that profited from the pandemic should be giving their profits back.
Yeah, because the pandemic, by the way,
Yeah.
was one of the single biggest variables in the divide between richest and poorest.
Exactly. Give
the
it
rich
back.
got much richer, and the poor got
And not
got
just
poorer.
that, the poor got sick and they died. Like, give it back.
Also, for all the people that have a hard on about for capitalism, by the way, in this country, 6 energy companies, basically a monopoly, 1 water company in Thames Water here, I think it's that just in London.
But this is where you'll find that even the capitalists tend to agree with you. I've not found anybody.
It's no
on any
competition.
part
That's
of the
what I'm saying.
political
But that's what I'm
spectrum.
saying with the capitalists,
yeah.
right? This is like even your own system isn't working here.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we going to move quickly?
We agree with that one. I think. Yeah.
I'm going to save one for the end because at the end I want us to give one of our wild takes. I don't know if you've prepared one, but I'll give you mine if not.
Yeah, I've got one. Let me do this one first. Trump owns Starmer.
Owned Starmer.
Owns Starmer. Trump comes to the UK, criticises Sadiq Khan without any fear of anyone thinking or saying it's disrespectful. Starmer says he's my friend, but that doesn't bother Trump. He literally walked into the UK, said whatever he wanted, and not one person could put him in his place, officially and evidently proving that he is the most powerful person on the planet.
He probably is the most powerful person on the planet. I'll be honest, I'm not sure how Keir Starmer could have handled that situation particularly differently without it blowing up like it did with Zelensky.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Look, it's certainly the case. I think let's just be honest. The UK is pretty subservient to America right now in terms of security.
And that's not really Keir Starmer's fault.
No, and there's not much you can do about that.
Yeah.
Now, look, I would definitely urge the government to push our. By the way, all the Brexit people, that Nigel Farage included, who talked about our sovereignty, are perfectly happy for us to be the 51st state of the United States, but just for some reason had a particular issue with European democracy. But look, I've kind of said contradictory things. Starmer has actually, I think, dealt with Trump fairly well, but there is just a reality that as far as security goes, we are very reliant on America. Economically, we're pretty reliant. Those tariffs could hurt us, but I do think our politics and policies need to be distinctly different because we're an independent country with a strong tradition and history that doesn't need to be following the tune of America. In fact, when we've done that in the past, a la Iraq, it's gone horribly wrong.
I agree with you. All I would add is that actually I think people underestimate, there's no logic to Trump. I really don't think he's not. Look, my opinion is he's a bit of an idiot. Yeah. And he's the most successful businessman. There are a lot of idiotic businessmen who just got by being businessmen with a lot of money. Sorry, like it doesn't actually indicate intelligence. A lot of it is luck. But what I would say is he likes the UK. He has a fondness for the UK. I think there is also maybe a certain admiration for the UK that some Americans have. They feel linked to it. They like the monarchy.
Well, they also see a lot of our culture. They see from like Downton Abbey.
Yeah,
and
a lot of our soft power comes from our culture. So, I think actually Starmer is handling Trump fairly well in the way that he can, and I think don't underestimate how Trump actually has a bit of a soft spot for the UK, where he might not feel like he needs to shit on it.
But ultimately, I think it's very hard to consider Trump at any point an ally or an enemy because he is so unpredictable.
Yeah, he's just a law unto himself.
Yeah, and it's almost impossible. Right, we're going to move quickly through these, right?
Yeah.
People over the age of 65 should not be allowed to vote.
That was going to be my controversial opinion.
Was it actually?
I was going to say 80.
Okay, I disagree, but 80 is much more reasonable.
I was going to say 80.
65 is crazy.
I
disagree with that. 65.
I was going to say 80, partly a bit tongue-in-cheek, but more just have a shot at pensioners. Because you know how I feel about pensioners.
We know how you feel about pensioners. If you don't, go listen to some of our radio shows.
Do you know what? It's reparations because of what they've done. Right, Brexit, reform, Nigel Farage,
reparations
Tories for austerity, all of it's got the pensioners, grubby fingerprints all over it. And if you're all going to kick off about young people getting the right to vote when they're 16, then I'm sorry, maybe you guys should maybe in fact, how about this? Here's my suggestion, little experiment. Just give you guys a break from voting in the next general election, and let's just see what happens.
See how it goes. Do you have any more? No?
No, I've said my piece.
No. Do you have any more takes?
Sorry. No.
Do you have any more on this?
I've nothing else to say about pensioners for now.
All right. I'll give you a couple quick ones before I give you the last big one. there should be an option of no valid options on the ballot for when people vote.
Sure. I don't feel strongly about that one.
The pension triple lock shouldn't exist.
That's another good one. Yeah, absolutely.
Should we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Could you explain what the triple lock is to people?
Oh, okay. The triple lock basically means that pensions will always go up with earnings, inflation, or by 2%. 2%?
Yeah, whichever's the highest.
Whichever's the highest.
Yeah.
Which basically means...
It guarantees pensioners' wages go up above inflation and at a higher rate than public sector workers, than everyone else. And this is an example for me, by the way, if you're listening, of how much voting and engagement in the political process makes a difference. Winter fuel allowance, kind of controversial, ended up coming back. 2-child limit, nothing. Public sector pay, right? Labour have done a bit more on it, but still well below getting the pay back to the real life earnings, right? Tuition fees, nothing. If you look at pensioners, politically, they have far more success with any government, from the triple lock not being touched to winter fuels being U-turned, compared to children with the 2-child poverty, students with tuition fees. There's a reason why the triple lock won't be touched, whereas international aid gets cut and the 2-child limit continues to go
You can't touch pensioners because they are this huge voting bloc. They keep voting in their own interest. The other thing I would say is there is this myth. And let's say, that kind of goes to your point of them not being allowed to vote, because they really just vote on their own interest. Yeah, they really vote for themselves. Yeah.
Whereas young people actually tend to vote about others.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's this myth that you've paid into your pension pot, your state pension pot, with national insurance all your life, and therefore you should be able to get your pension. That's what they say. Actually, it's not true, okay? We are paying your pension right now. Pensions today are taken out of our tax bill. What is happening is we have an ageing population, so all the pensioners are living on. There are less of us. That means that we are just not going to get the triple lock when we're older. We might not even have a state pension at all because there aren't enough of us paying the pension, right? So pensioners also have, there used to be a problem with pensioner poverty in this country. Now pensioners are the wealthier generation. They're wealthier than our generation. Is it like a third of pensioners are millionaires, something like that? A lot of pensioners, okay, you might not be very cash rich, but you have expanding assets, so you're sat in houses that have increased in value. That isn't earned wealth, right? That is just wealth that you sat on because there's a housing crisis. You have earned money from us not being able to buy houses. So no, I don't think you should have the triple lock.
Okay, this is the last one before I go to my controversial take. Our controversial, even though we know what yours is now. I'm not going to expect a lot back on this, but I just want to see your reaction. This is a legitimate one I got.
Okay.
Dueling to death or first blood should be legalized as an option to solve disputes between consenting individuals, but there shouldn't be a stigma for refusing to partake in duels. They should only be allowed to take place in designated areas with legal observers. My favourite bit, minors shouldn't be allowed to duel. So, by the way, this person has thought it through.
Really?
Stigma, fuck that. If you don't want to do it, you don't need to do it. Minors should definitely not be allowed to duel. It should be in designated areas between consenting adults.
Do you know what?
Fuck it.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? That would actually at least inject a little bit of fun into our lives. Like everyone's like, "Oh, what are you doing tonight?" Might go watch that duel. Might go see if anyone's dueling in that designated area.
I bet people would 100% do it.
It'd be men. There'd be men doing it.
100%. Yeah.
It'd be just stupid men doing. And do you know what? That'd be fine by me.
Fun to go and watch.
That's a good one.
So do you have another one other than the thinking one before we go?
My other controversial opinion.
Should I give you mine before we...
Yeah, go on.
Billionaires shouldn't exist. Now, the reason I say this, people don't understand. And I recently did a bit on LBC where Sarah Pochin, the Reform UK MP, famous one because she gave a speech about a burqa, even though no one in her constituency wears a burqa. And she didn't mean burqa, she meant niqab. We talked about the fact that the rich are holding our economy hostage because all this talk about millionaires and billionaires leaving the country. I don't think people appreciate how much money £1 billion is, and the fact that if you're hoarding that much amount of money in cash or assets, you're not releasing it back into the economy, and you're essentially hoarding wealth to the detriment of the rest of society. We're not talking about millions and millions of pounds here. We're £1 billion. is beyond what anyone in their lifetime can imagine that they should be earning. And anyone who's been able to hoard that much money and that much wealth and keep it away from society, away from the economy, while people can't afford to eat, can't afford to heat their homes, can't afford to have a roof over their heads, is an absolute policy failure.
So there's two things. I totally agree with you. The first is that goes back to that point about too much of our journalism is not actually properly explaining data. People think $1 billion is like not that far away from what, you know, someone who works very hard makes. Okay, there's this view of like, don't be horrible to the rich people. Like, I could be a rich person one day. Yeah. You can't make the only way.
While
you can
you do
make
this,
$1 billion,
I'm gonna look up how much you'd have to earn a day for £1 billion.
What
right?
you can only make $1 billion by exploiting other people's labour.
It's not, that's the only way.
You can't make $1 billion just on your own.
Yeah.
And there's this idea that when people say tax the rich, they're talking about, you know, someone in a 5-bed house who goes on 2 holidays a year and one of them's a skiing holiday. That's not what people are talking. Those people, wealthy, but you are nowhere near the rich that are being spoken about.
So to make £1 billion a year, and people say these people work hard. No doubt people work hard. Everyone works hard. I'm not sure billionaires do, but everyone works hard, right? So to make £1 billion a year, which is 1,000 million pounds, in a 365-day period, it means you earn £2.739 million a day.
Wow. Wow. So over £2 million a day.
A day.
To make
£1 billion in a year.
Wow. How many, skiing holidays?
Don't tell me anyone works that hard.
No.
Right?
You can't.
Or that money is coming back into
Also, what
the
is
thing.
hard work? We talk about hard work like it's this like easily conceptualized thing, right? Like people work really hard and we're telling them to we're making them leave the country.
Also, by the way, we're going to have a tax episode soon. Apparently that's not even true.
Yeah.
Apparently the data on these
not.
millionaires leaving is not even true.
The idea that somebody, the sort of people who make billions are working hard when really they're just like on their phones, going for lunch.
And we all know they're working like 3 days a week.
Maybe they have to lay off a team. Maybe they have to fire, a pregnant woman. Oh, that must be really tough.
There's
people literally travelling 3 hours to work at 5 a.m. every morning to clean a hospital.
There's no way they're working harder than a bus driver, a nurse, a dustbin man or woman.
Like, it must have been really hard from you taking that call from your son, Lanza.
Right, we've run out of time unless you have a last minute entry.
I don't like Excel bullies.
Oh, right, yes, you've said this
I
before.
really don't like them.
So you're big.
I would have gone further. I would have probably euthanized them all.
Right, we're going to get out
I
of
just
this
think they're
before
really
we get-
dangerous.
I don't know much about them. Are they actually really dangerous?
They're really, really dangerous.
You know they're going to come for you in the comments.
Well, as long as they don't send their Excel bullies.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll be fine.
All right, guys. Hope you've enjoyed that. It's been fun talking through some of the hot political text. Here's what we need to do. We're going to do another one of these in a couple of months. Put your most controversial, wild political takes in the comments because we're going to do another episode. We'll probably anonymize them unless if you want your name, maybe mention that in the comment. Please like the video, share, subscribe to the channel more than anything because we've got some amazing content coming your way. Thank you for watching the podcast, listening to the podcast. If you're listening, please give us a 5-star review wherever you are, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. And we'll see you on the next episode of The Politics of Podcast.
See you then.